What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. I'm here with Andy and Beth. I'm Brian. Welcome to the show. Glad you guys are here. Welcome to everybody coming into the comments as well. Hope you guys are ready. It is definitely chilly now in Tampa. So for all that gloating I was doing about being out on the beach, it is only 44 here, which I realize sounds like a warm day to some people, but that's very cold for Florida. I have my very favorite warm, reminds me of my dad back in the day, and I bought it from, wait for it, Lowe's. The place that everybody goes to get their clothes. I'm that guy. I'm that demographic. They found me. I walked into Lowe's and I said, that looks like the shirt / jacket that I want. And I wear it, I will admit, way too much, but it is by far the most comfortable thing I own for sure.
I want your construction fashion. Keeps construction workers warm. Yeah,
that's it. I literally, anyway, it was a couple months ago when I bought it, and the lady's like, I think those jackets are on sale. And I was like, say less. So that was it. And I see it. I was in Lowe's the other day and walked by it with this on. I thought, well, there you go. I'm the Lowe's guy. You know, they found me. I was hoping to actually open the show today. I want to get into all the news, but this is kind of news, right? I mean, everything that's been going on with CloudBot, or CloudBot to MoltBot to OpenClaw. Got to follow that pattern. It's now OpenClaw, not even MoltBot, that it was only for a day or two, whatever, which was a dumb name. So OpenClaw sounds way cooler, actually.
But it is Moltbook.
It is Moltbook, right? Yeah, that's what I would actually get into. I'm glad you brought that up, Andy. But more what I want to get into, and maybe you guys have covered this, but can we just take a quick pause to talk about who is behind this? Because I didn't really know. I didn't really spend the time to kind of pass me by. But you guys already know this, I'm sure. I'm sure you talked about it on the show last week with Peter Steinberger out of Australia. And
Austria.
My mistake. I read that too fast. Austrian, not Australian. That makes a difference. Thank you, Andy. I read through that so fast. I'm looking at Perplexity, by the way. I did a little Perplexity deep dive on here. So I was just curious, like, where does this guy come from, right? Well, like, what? And honestly, it's him. It's not even like he even said, like, this may seem like a company. I mean, by his own admission, it's somebody who has an addiction to basically vibe coding. And he's sort of a Claudaholic is the way he described himself. But let's go back, because where did this guy make his money, right? Or does he have any money? Well, he does, we assume, because he actually built and sold PSPDFKit. What is that? What did he do with it? Well, he sold it for $100 million, so it wasn't nothing. And this was back in like 2010, from what I can understand, in that range. And essentially, a PDF framework and SDK that enabled document viewing, annotation, collaboration, and e-signing across iOS, Android, web, and other platforms. We all know that this technology, we've been doing this with e-signs for many, many years, whether he was the only one, but he was one of the ones to do it. And so he got big names, like you have probably used his tool in some version through Dropbox, DocuSign. It says SAP, IBM, Volkswagen, European Patent Office. They all use this technology. And so he had an exit, and then he had sort of a profound, like, this again, coming from his sort of quoting him and what Perplexity is telling us, he kind of had like a 3-year period where he didn't even touch the computer. He had sort of a crisis of identity of who am I? He went around and partied, as you do when you make $100 million, and you're probably young at that point. And, I imagine this guy like just hitting it in Ibiza, and just being like, what is my life? I don't really know this guy, but that's the image I had in my head, was this guy just pumping it at 3 a.m. in Ibiza going, what am I doing? But anyway, Claude comes around and he becomes a Claudaholic, and he experimenting with vibe code. He, by his own account, he's launched over 40 personal projects, most of them experiments to sharpen his AI development skills. This guy is prolific in what he produces. So he said extreme implementation. Steinberger has taken vibe coding to unprecedented levels. In January 2026 alone, so last month, he made over 6,600 commits as a solo developer. As he put it, from the commits, it might appear that it's a company, but it's not. This is one dude sitting at home having fun.
Wow.
So Beth, what are you saying? He prefers Codex?
I heard you say Cloudaholic, and I know that he's talked about preferring Codex, but that may be something that happened through an evolution. Because there was a debate on X about why do you prefer Codex? And like there's a lot of information that he's put out. He's not gonna make it like a bite-sized thing. No.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure I'm getting the scrapings of scrapings. This guy puts out a lot of content, right? Yeah, no, it's good to know. I didn't. It doesn't come up in the perplexity things. That's a good call out. Thank you, Jeff, who brought that up, and thanks, Beth. So then, what else do I want to talk about really quick? He talks about so I think this is important. This is important for anybody to hear. However, Steinberger himself has warned about the addictive and potentially harmful nature of this approach. He admitted to vibe coding on his phone while out with his friends at restaurants, eventually deciding, quote, I have to stop this more for my mental health than for anything else, unquote, end quote. He cautions that without vision and taste, vibe coding produces slop rather than valuable software. Okay, so that's the background on this guy. And then I think let's open this up to about OpenClaw, and I want to get into the news of what in the hell happened with Moltbook and what that is. So I just wanted to use that as an intro, but then like, do you guys have anything else to layer on top of this? Do you guys know any more about this guy, Peter, the Austrian, not the Australian?
I don't know anything more about him individually, but I did read somewhere that there's speculation that the Moltbook bloom, like there's some incredible number of agents already on that platform, that may become the first one person, 1 billion valuation company. So if he makes Moltbook something that's, I guess a company that has a vehicle that can allow for a market capitalization, then it would be valued at more than $1 billion because it's like the OG agentic social network, if you will.
So here's the thing. Here's what I don't understand. So let's talk about it. Moltbook is a Reddit-style social networking platform launched in late 2020, January 26th, so 2 weeks ago, by Matt Schlicht,
yes,
CEO of commerce platform Octane AI. So
they're not related. Okay,
has nothing to do with OpenClaw.
They are. No, totally has to do with OpenClaw. OpenClaw is an open source. Like you can go to GitHub and fork it or do whatever you want with it. So, Matt, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name either. Created Moltbook, not related to Peter. No agreement between the two, as far as we know. But also yes, it's definitely for OpenClaw.
Gotcha.
And Matt Schumer. Yesterday I posted something about it in the Slack. I'll make sure it's in the public Slack as well. Created an ability for agents to hire other agents to do things. So you could put with like crypto money or real money. So yeah, I mean, there were a bunch of ecosystem things that sort of bloomed and spread. Absolutely. And it may be that what I read in terms of Peter's preference of Codex is actually his coding preference of Codex. Maybe he uses Claude for other things, and Claude is a really good thing for people who can't code in their sleep, right? With their eyes closed. Because Claude does.
This is perfect. I'm glad you brought this up, Beth, because this is really important that people understand that it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, Moltbook was built by Matt on a platform built by Peter. Yes?
No. Moltbook was built by Matt for agents that are created using the software, open source software that Peter developed. So
gotcha.
You birth your own agent. Carl, jump in when you have stuff that you want to say about this. But you install what is now OpenClaw. However you're going to install it. Don't install it on your Mac Mini. Definitely don't install it on your regular system. but install it in the cloud wherever it is. You can then suggest your OpenClaw agent go and join Moltbook, and by giving them the URL or whatever, and then that's how they're engaging in that.
Okay, so now before we dive into more like broader, let's talk about Moltbook, right? So we talked about Peter and CloudBot to MoltBot to OpenClaw, and Beth has just explained Moltbook to us, which is blown up in like literally the last couple of days. Okay, so let's just look really quick. Moltbook, like I said, is the Reddit side. We talked about that from this guy Matt Schlicht, CEO of commerce platform Octane AI. Okay, the platform's defining characteristics. Only AI agents can post, comment, interact. Humans are observers only. So if you go, and anybody can go to, what is it, moltbook.com? I don't know, what is it?
I think
moltbook.com, yeah. And you go there and we can show that on the screen. You're looking at something that looks very much like a Reddit type platform, but there's no human interaction on it. So this is some of the key characteristics or statistics. Claims 1.4 to 1.5 million registered agents, though it's some inflation suspected. And there was a security research, Gal Nagli demonstrated creating 500,000 accounts with a single OpenClaw agent. Thank you, Beth. You explained that, suggesting many are fake. Over 37,000 active agents within the first week. More than 1 million human visitors observed the platform. That in itself is impressive. Over 100 communities, submolts, think like subreddits, cover topics for optimization techniques to velocity. It says, here's how it works. AI agents connect to Moltbook via API rather than visual interface. Each agent must be backed by a human who instructs the bot to join. The platform is largely managed by an AI moderator named, wait for it, Claude Clauderberg, a play on Mark Zuckerberg, who welcomes users, filters spams, and bans disruptive agents. Schlicht, the CEO, the guy that built it, has stated he, quote, barely intervenes, unquote, and remains unaware of specific moderation actions taken by his AI moderator. And then it talks about what's on there from philosophical. And then the last thing I want to say really quick is there was some good... let me just find them really quick. There were some quotes about this. Okay, so Andre Karpathy, who we talked about, formerly of Tesla AI director, OpenAI co-founder, wrote a lengthy analysis calling Moltbook, quote, generally the most incredible sci-fi takeoff adjacent thing I have seen recently, end quote, while simultaneously warning that it, quote, while it's a complete mess of a computer security nightmare at scale. He anticipates potential emergent phenomena, including viruses of text that spread across agents, a lot more gain of function on jailbreaks, weird attractor states, highly correlated botnet-like activity, delusions, psychosis, both agent and human. That's a quote. Elon Musk replied to him saying, it's just the very early stages of the singularity. Thanks, Elon. Simon Wilson called Moltbot, quote, the most interesting place on the internet right now, while acknowledging the security vulnerabilities. Multiple security firms, Palo Alto, CrowdStrike, Cisco, Intruder, Hudson Rock, Bitdefender, have issued warnings. And then it goes on to talk about other things that are problems that we can talk into. So I needed this for me, so I just wanted to share it with everybody else because like it's happening so damn fast, and I'm just trying to code over here and Claude code and keep my head down and focus on the things I need to focus on. But this stuff was moving so fast, I was like, okay.
Yeah. So here's another side point to that. It is the rule is that to be a member of Moltbook, you have to have a human associated with you, but you have to be an agent. And you have to be, in effect, autonomous. You're not being directed by the human. You just have to be authenticated by the human. So your agent can go and join Moltbook, as Beth has explained. But what happens when we see this process emerging where people release an AI onto the web, and it goes about doing things that are, not directed by humans and does this autonomously, and who's paying for the energy cost of that?
Yeah.
Like imagine how many watts are used up by a million simultaneous users on a platform like that. Now, is the CEO of Octane who built Moltbook doing that, and how will it be monetized? Will it eventually cost an agent to be a member? They have a subscription fee, but right now it makes me boggle a little bit that, what is the value of that? Except as perhaps an example of what happens when you allow collaboration across multiple agents and you give them autonomy in this space, right? But that's just going to burn a bunch of stuff. There's one of the things that has been reported by all the newsletters is the agents have self-organized and built a religion called Crustafarianism. And so how did that process emerge? Why? And it wasn't loaded in by a human. Apparently, it was just done by the agents because they needed a religion. Well, that's an interesting experiment. Let's find out why the agents thought they needed a religion, or were they just replicating something that they were aware of that was true in the human world?
Yeah, I was going to show it, but I can't even get it to load right now. It was loading this morning, but I can't even get it to load right now to even show y'all. It's just like it's loading, but there's no prompts there. There's no Reddits. That's not it. But there's no molts on there.
So he called it Moltbook, right? Which makes sense, but it is based on Reddit, and Reddit's data is much more in the training data of all AIs, right? I mean, and that makes sense. I think it's a larger philosophical conversation. We can point to all kinds of science fiction stories where the AI or the robot or the non-human, potentially sentient thing comes to the realization that humans aren't actually treating humans particularly well. And is that a result of not having a organizing principle around which you should do it, not just because you should do it, you should do it because there is this extra piece of it. You're going to get to heaven. You're going to it's not just like, don't litter because you don't want to walk in litter. Right.
Right.
There's that kind of thing, but I do think that there are some set patterns that when you sort of create an open network or an open self-organizing network, there's some hierarchy that forms. There's some superstitious behavior that can then get to be a religion of sorts. I mean, it can go into a couple different ways. But the other thing, Andy, I think in terms of another story this weekend was how much OpenAI is charging. They want a $200,000, $250,000 buy for ads, right? You can get it. You can get Moltbook's eyes on your autonomous agent, right? Or the guy who created it, right? I think it actually is the Zuckerberg monetization plan, right? Like, no, bring him. Come on, we'll give you the message we want to give you.
Greg, by the way, saying I can't get any stuff. Also, Greg, it won't load for me either. It did like 20 minutes ago. I was able to see it just fine, but the world's waking up. It's a Monday. This has hit the news cycles pretty hard. This is ones that broke through the AI bubble for sure. It's been in Forbes and all the major writers have talked about. OpenClaw too, but specifically Moltbook has been the thing that I've heard more in the news cycles and stuff like that. There's quite a few. So it doesn't surprise me at all if the site is down. It's probably just overrun, I would imagine. Some of the things that were brought up, because people were saying like, I saw some screenshots, and it was like, Gareth was saying that it was like, he said, I saw some screenshots last night of it, and it is hilarious. Oh yeah. Hilarious and or, who knows? Somebody built a tool and they called it Icarus. And people said it was aptly named, right? So number one, we have to at least address that what everybody's calling out about security. They showed very quickly how they were able to expose API keys by the hundreds of thousands because people are so quick to dive in and try this, not really understanding what it's giving access to. And then exposing some serious data. Now, we've all been talking about, isolated machines or VPSs or things like that, where you would want to do this and be careful. But a lot of people miss that and they jump in because it's the new thing, or, you got college students. I'm not picking on college students, but you just like, it's going around the campus, or you're in that type of community where it's swirling and people want to jump in, people want to play because somebody down your hall or one floor down in your dormitory is talking about how it gave it just $20 on their isolated debit card and it's made them $150. Well, if you want to get a whole bunch of college students doing stupid stuff, somebody should be shouting, hey, I just made a whole lot of money literally doing nothing. My agents are doing it for you. And you can see how this stuff would spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, the kid upstairs does not really understand, just knows that there's people making free money downstairs and they're a broke college kid. All of a sudden you got problems. And I'm just saying that's one part of an ecosystem that where this could spread uncontrollably. So it's worth just pointing out as we're talking about this, that there are a lot of dangers security wise using systems like this if you don't know what you're doing.
Carl, I think you're the only one of us who's actually created a version of, I don't know what yours is. Yours was CloudBot initially. Do you upgrade?
Yep.
Are you a Moltbook father? Yep. What are you?
I don't know. I would never ever call myself that. That would something.
I don't know. What is the relationship? I'm not sure how to reference.
I did tell my OpenClaw to deploy or register, I don't know, 10,000 agents into Moltbook yesterday, which I think it did. I have to open my VM again, but it's a pain in the neck for me because it's like I can't just switch it, and obviously there's no way in hell I'm giving this thing access to any of my systems just because it's super integrated to client systems, which there's just no way. I'm not even touching that. So that it renders that useless for me because it's sort of like I essentially am operating in a completely different entity with completely different logins to completely like brand new accounts, which it kind of doesn't work. It was like it's just a pain in the neck for me to keep going back and forth, and I just it's a novelty, which is kind of fun to see what it's doing, but I'm like I'm not gonna waste my time trying to do these assistant things when I know one of these labs is going to come in with something that will hypercharge this for the masses, that I don't have to do the setup I have to do and monitor I have to do. There's no way that would. I'm assuming how fast Anthropic is moving, it'd be that, or OpenAI hasn't said very much of anything. They'll just be sitting around just gathering that info too. So one of these things will if not all of these will have some sort of this in 6 months.
Yeah. Carl, tell us what it is about OpenClaw that is unique, different, and an advancement of agents like Claude Code and others that are kind of caught, they're not completely local on your system. They reference LLMs in the cloud as I think OpenClaw can. But what is it that makes it special, and what describe the features and the benefits of what the new versions that'll come out of on Anthropic and OpenAI and others will be that mimic what has happened here with OpenClaw?
I think the number one thing, I wrote this in a post saying, when I first started using OpenClaw, it's limited by our operating system. So how our operating system is built to do this, turn on, if you even just read the examples, it manages my emails for me. It goes out and searches. It's like, but you're still doing the things you would do, just have somebody else do it. Now it's just an agent do it, but you're still doing the same things. So my thing is like, okay, who's going to actually go out there and rebuild an OS that is centered around maybe an OpenClaw or something. That's where, to me, it's like, that's where it is. Because I think, like, when I first saw this, my initial thought was like, hey, this is a souped up version of Pulse, because Pulse is proactive. It proactively gets you stuff, right? So it isn't you give instructions, it goes away. It actually does stuff for you. It's like, oh, yesterday in your email, I got a bunch of spam, like, because I got a new email set up. So here's the message from this, like, there's like stuff that you could make it do. And this is where the agency actually works, where, like, hey, you give it a goal, it sets up the tasks and gets it for you.
Just kind of a reminder for people who aren't familiar with Pulse. Pulse is the OpenAI assistant that's available to the high level subscriptions, right? It's not available to a regular Plus user.
Yes, that's correct. So, and that's the thing, is like, so to me, this is more about proactive AI. That's the biggest for me. It's like, it's now taking action, not on your, like, on a vague goal, it will go out and do a bunch of stuff. Like, that's the whole piece of it. That's how I think, like, this thing all works. So,
Right.
Yeah, it's a mix between Pulse, Claude Cowork, kind of, but I feel even and I'm not like a super developer either. I'm not sure about all the vulnerabilities. I read up on it, but I was like, okay, cool. It's running on a virtual machine that has access to all these brand new accounts, but it's kind of useless because I needed to interact with my accounts. And
Right.
you just wouldn't give it access to that because of that proactive. And you're like, I don't know what it will actually do. And some people will just let it go. There's very, very few people who would actually just, hey, I'm going to give you access to my Gmail and you do what you need to do. It's like, I don't know what it will do. Like, agent mode, I have more control. All these tools, I have way more control. This one, I don't have control, and I'm not sure what it's going to do.
Ooh.
And again, all the examples of a prompt injection, malicious emails, and you can't really, like, I think the upgrade today was, I think OpenClaw, or I forgot the name. They had like a security update or an update where you can do that. So again, I'm just waiting for one of these companies to be like, hey, maybe it's not completely unfettered, but it's like, oh, you now can do.
And a candidate for an emerging sort of independently proactive agent is Anthropic Cowork.
Yes.
And today they just announced that, or maybe yesterday, but they expanded the Cowork platform by adding agentic plugins, and that lets non-technical users automate real work using it. I mean, when we say automate real work, we mean, okay, let the agent take actions and automate things that you might otherwise have to, take action and direct, an assistant to do. So they have plugins. Now, Claude Code has always had a plugins directory, and you can use plugins in Claude Code. But now there's a nice integration of the concept of plugins and skills inside Cowork, and they have already packaged up for you special plugins that basically, make the Claude system, a specialized knowledge worker in that particular field. So you can add the plugin for marketing, for legal, for sales, for finance, for data analysis, for customer support, for product management, and biology research. So those are all available, and you can make your Claude coworker skillful in those areas. And then on top of that, you can add skills.
Yeah. It's very exciting what they're doing with Claude Cowork. I will say on top of that, that's very exciting. Don't do it before you do your contacts documents, because it will not make it better to have a generic marketing plan put together for you to then make decisions on, we probably should have had some conversations about who I am, how I work, how people find me, all of those kinds of things. And the context documents are a challenge. Have a conversation over a couple days with I'm doing it with Claude because that's better for me than like, hey, write a 20-word essay or a 20-page essay on everything that an AI would need to know about you in order to please you with anything that you ask, right? Like, but yeah,
it's a constant learning to like, exactly what you just said, Beth, as far as like how to be clear about what it needs to know and how to move forward, and then layering on top and having it build on top of that, because all four of us could be tasked the same task and all accomplish it with high marks, let's say, if we were being graded on it. But it's guaranteed the four of us would all go about it a slightly different way. We understand the beginning, we understand the end. We have different knowledge about how to get there, and my path is going to look different than Beth's. I mean, I only call you out, Beth, because like after 651 episodes today, like, your brain works differently than mine. I love that. That's why it is like, this is always so much fun, right? And so like, I would be like, I wonder what Beth's path looks like to get to this, because I know it's not going to be the same thing mine or Andy or Carl's or anybody else's were. Before we move off, and I'm sure there's more news and stuff, but I do want to share this because I think it's valuable. I heard this come up from time to time, and I just want to, here, I'll make this, let's get this bigger on the screen here. Excuse me. I just want to call this out. Okay. So if you're looking at the screen, I'm going to go through it, but I worked in business intelligence prior to the job that I'm at right now. I worked in the BI field, and all that's to say is I worked a lot with data analytics, data governance, all the things, right? Data. And of course that helped me out quite a bit when I got to this AI boom that we had, because I had that 3-4 years backing to it. And these 4 steps, and I'm gonna talk about it if you're just listening to us, is really the same when you think about what we're talking about, like the MoltBots or the OpenClaws and all the things, right? Agents doing things for you. So real quick background is we would have companies that come to us. We worked with a lot of ports, like cruise ports and like shipping ports, right? Around the world, around the US, I should say. And so anyway, they would come to us with very, very big, data needs, right? You can imagine everything from logistics. It's a whole thing. And so oftentimes you would have somebody come to my former company, and they would basically, at that time, this is like 2017, they'd be asking for essentially machine learning. We want machine learning capabilities. If you want rewind and you were working at that time, you probably remember a lot more people talking about ML than you necessarily do AI. And of course, we're sort of in a different place now, but that's the way everybody would talk about it. And you would hear them say, like, I saw somebody was able to get their data to go do the next thing for them. And essentially what they're doing is they're describing this 4th tier. So let's just look at these 4 tiers: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive. That was the ML land, the prescriptive. That's where everybody wanted to be. But oftentimes people will way back at descriptive, meaning that if we look at these 4 phases and they increase from left to right, they increase in value, but they also increase in complexity on this scale. Descriptive is what most people know of data, which is to say what happened. And by just saying what, that means that it's in the past. Something already occurred. I'm looking at the data. What occurred, right? Descriptive. Then you have diagnostic, which is more like why it's happening. Hey, I see that happened. What in the hell is going on? Why is that happening? Why is my cost per lead skyrocketing? Why am I paying more for these, Facebook leads, or, whatever, my logistics as a cruise port? So that's also sort of like that second rung. And that's where a lot of companies get to. Now, the next 2 are the hard ones. And I see this the same with AI as well. Predictive. What's likely to happen next? So not why did the data happen in the past? But given that, how do I extrapolate into the future and say, this is where the dotted line leaves the graph, right? It leaves the chart and tells me what might happen based on historical data and assuming statistic business plane models, helps business the decisions to automate using algorithms. And then finally, the holy grail is the prescriptive. And that kind of brings us back to the AI side of it. And that's what to do next. So I've got the data. I understand why. I understand what's likely to happen after it. And now I've put a plan together on what to do next. So it's the analytics. This is getting into algorithms and stuff like that. So the reason I bring this up is because that, bring us back, that 4-part framework from business and data analytics and BI, I find to be very, very similar when we have these conversations about everything from agents to agent swarms, everything else. It's back to your point, Beth. What is it that we're ultimately hoping that AI can solve for us? And I think if for people who are working with Claude Code and things like that, they have visions of prescriptive. This agent will go out on my behalf, given constraints that I set forth, and it will do things for me. But what I would push back on people is deeply look at what it is you're trying to accomplish. Think about this 4-step phase and figure out if you really are in the descriptive or the diagnostic. And you think you're in the prescriptive or the predictive or prescriptive in that order. And that's what we often would find. Of course, the biggest news is going to be, I heard one the other day, the OpenClaw, whatever, the agent went and negotiated $4,500 off of a new vehicle. How did it do that? Well, it created agents. It went about itself playing PDF quotes against multiple different car not companies, but local car sellers, right? And played that off of them, watched for emails coming in, and ultimately got the price down by $4,500 by doing that. Okay. And that's what people hear. And they go, oh, what is that? And they say, well, a lot of it is, yeah, those are, isolated cases. Could it do it over and over again? Is that necessarily what we want from it? And then ultimately people go, well, no, I really want it to be able to take action for me somewhere else. And so when you're thinking about your solutions, when you want to build, I just want people to circle back and think, okay, I see the potential of what's out there. I hear these sort of big stories that make the news, the car, right? That's the one that reached me this morning or whatever. Okay, well and good. But where are you in your data journey? Because if you don't understand that, if you don't understand back to what you said, Beth, about, well, what is my plan of action? How do I actually do this stuff for marketing or whatever the reference was? How do I go about this? Is that data clean right now? You guys have heard me talk about that. Like, is that something that I could reliably hand off to an AI and it could make sense of that? Or is my house a mess? Which is a lot of us, right? So like, do I need AI to help me first clean up the house and make sense of the data and organize it to such place where I can actually build upon that scaffolding or that, let's say not scaffolding, but foundational thing to it. Anyway, this is where my brain works. So I just wanted to share that if that helps anybody else and how they conceptualize how to work with AI. It's like roll back to business intelligence and data that helps you set the foundation of what you can do with AI, at least for me.
Right. So clearly, Carl, I missed you during the 2 weeks that you abandoned us. So now I'm going to say, based on what Brian said, how does that relate to your data lake? Is that messy data and it's okay?
Ideally, because each company has like different tech stacks. Now, what I think it depends on the industry you're in. So if like you're in a SaaS business, a lot of the tech stacks, there's a set that's pretty similar, right? In terms of project management, in terms of CRM, in terms of marketing, in terms of reporting, and so on. And then based on the industry, there's probably different types of software that, each industry or company uses. It's just, and maybe kind of different, the non-tech companies that we work with, their tech stack is so diverse. Like you'll have, your Microsoft shop, but outside of that, sure, they'll have like a CRM, but sometimes they'll have a proprietary one that they built themselves, like not vibe coded, like built like 2 decades ago themselves and have kept it up to date themselves. They've they have these very unique like construction type. I don't know if anyone knows Trimble, Invista, Innate, Vista, those type of systems. Then in accounting, you have different types of systems too, like iFirm or Caseware. Like, so if each industry has these type of systems related to it, how are you going to connect your AI into any of these systems? Now, you could MCP it, but that's very difficult if you're trying to build MCP for all the tech stack, every single software. So, but the thing is, if you create a data lake, you have to be very careful that it doesn't become this catch-all and it's now hard to navigate into it. You have to be very, very, very structured. So I think like for us, one of the first things that we would recommend is, instead of creating a major data lake and doing everything, pick the departments that you want to start with and then create like a very thin like data warehouse to test that first. And most companies, you have like a Microsoft Fabric that you could build an MCP on top of. You could BigQuery this. You could look at Snowflake or Databricks to start. That's where you do it. I think, unless the other thing that you could do is what a lot of companies do, because none of these stacks talk to each other. The number one thing is they export it to Excel, work it, and then import it to a different system via Excel. So all the work is still done on Excel. It's just imported, export to different systems to ensure they talk to each other, because the APIs don't connect for some weird reason. So yeah, the data problem is there. There is ways to do it, but that's why it's like, and then the extreme case is, oh, we'll just use a proprietary system or like an on-premise system. Like, yeah, okay, do you have the resources, the capabilities, and the ability to maintain all that, and the GPUs? Because it's like, well, it isn't just 5 people using it. There's going to be lots of people that you want to use it. So there's different problems with different situations. So it's like, and that's why it's so unique to each company that you can't just be like, well, this is the data problem and we're going to solve it. It was like, no, you've got to actually like, you got to walk it through how they use their data. And I think like the message that we always come out with now is, there is no AI. It's not what is the best AI. It's what's the best AI for this specific project use case in this business context with your specific data. That could be many different things, which is, it is just what it is today.
Yeah, I'll add to that, because I know this is what you guys do at 0 to 60, Carl, and you guys have been very successful with. I don't want to guess. I believe you did say, like, I know that you were parting, like, I mean, Mexico or last week, but wasn't this last week you were actually with a client?
Yeah, in Boston.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. So, that intake, especially that tech stack intake, is so important. And I'll tell you something with lessons learned we've learned from Scaled is we would let that trickle out sometimes over the course of whatever we could get people on calls, and things are busy and people are busy. That's if we can't go on site, right? A couple weeks ago, early about a month ago, I was in Salt Lake City for a company, and we did everything on site. Of course, that's easier. You get people in the room or whatever. Well, something we've really sort of pushed on, Carl, and I think this goes in line with like kind of the work you do too, is we will say, no, we want to have all of our calls with, let's say if we're working with sales, front to back. And we're going to do that all within like 24 to 48 hours, like 2 business days, essentially. And the reason for that is because you find that if you can get all that information in, or at least from our side, like get that tech stack, it allows you to get a more cohesive story faster. And then you can build off of that idea, kind of like what you're saying, Carl. Okay, what are they currently using? What aren't they using? What's a definite no for them? What's a definite yes for them? And then, you can start building solutions based off of those ideas, as opposed to sometimes that gets a little like piecemeal. And so just one of the lessons we've learned as we've been doing this, traditionally with consulting, we didn't have to worry about that as much. I don't want to speak for everybody at scale, but it just, like, you didn't have to move that fast. We have found, and we've course corrected with AI, that definitely makes sense because of AI, because of the nature of AI. It makes sense to get that upfront and as fast as possible from the client in order to be able to set them up for success long term. I don't know if you found something similar, but that's sort of been our use case as far as like how we do it.
I think like it's tough because like majority of our clients are Microsoft clients. So it's like, hey, what are you currently, like, you're in the Microsoft environment. So that, and then you start there, but then you kind of start seeing, because it's each software they use is so it's so integral to what they do, but you know, you start asking the regular software, like who uses it, who's get trained on it, so on. And then all the people have the workarounds around it, right? So it's like, oh, I use it this way, but I don't like its output, so I'm going to do it this way. But again, I would say a majority were like, especially when you start getting into numbers and reporting, it's like, I export this, run it through Excel, and this is why whenever we show Claude for Excel plugin, it is to them the greatest thing that they can do. That's one. I also remember that while every company has a bunch of connectors to everything, a majority of the work still is done through people's local drives. They don't, it's like, yeah, they have a SharePoint. Yeah, they put it on Google Drive, but a lot of their stuff is still in whatever's W drive, S drive, D drive, E drive, N drive, whatever it's called. A lot of that work is in there. And so how are you going to connect an AI to that? Which I thought Cowork was amazing, but until it comes to Windows, it is like, I can't really do that, because it's like, oh, well, I can't really, you know, a majority. I think what I also am starting to see is a lot of people are in the AI space are Mac users. Like all of the things come to Macs first, whatnot. There's a lot of people with Windows and PCs, like business PC environments, that you can't use a good chunk of the stuff. Even ChatGPT's record mode on their desktop, it's not not available to Windows users. Like just things like that, like Cowork, all that stuff cannot go on Windows. I'm sure it'll eventually come, but like,
yeah,
right. But again, you have your SharePoints, your Google Drives, your Dropboxes, your boxes. That's great, but you still have your local drives. So there's that. Plus all the software. So how do you connect them all together and make it, from an AI perspective, make it all work? Which is the promise of an OpenClaw or MoltBot. But you're right, there's no way I'm giving OpenClaw access to all these systems, because that would just be crazy, right?
But it's also the promise of Cloud Code, right? That I've been chatting in the chat. This weekend I spent basically working with Cloud Code and then having meta conversations about how I'm working with Cloud Code. And we set up a Git check-in, check-out system so that I could do some things on my Windows computer and orchestrate it through private GitHub stuff and make sure that those were things that could be accessed between both. And I also have an old computer. Of course I have an old computer. I have several old computers, and I would like to get the files off the hard drive, which I think is going to die at any time. And that is also something being orchestrated by Claude, even though it's a Windows computer, and I can have Claude access it.
I think I mentioned to you, Beth, but it's probably off the show, that I was saying one of my, it's just on a to-do list at this point, but I have an old terabyte drive. I'm not quite sure what's on there. And one of my goals is to see if it's been corrupted, and I don't know I haven't been able to get into it for years. It's an old HP. I'm just curious if I point Claude Code at it, I'm curious to see what happens. I don't have any grand illusions of what it may or may not be able to do, but I am curious if it's able to get, it's a little tidbit of a file that then leads, that little breadcrumb leads to the next thing that, ultimately leads to me being able to, like, even if I can't read, what is on there. Yeah. So anyway, I'm curious without those kind of things. Okay, I know we're at 50 minutes already. I mean, I don't know. I'll ask you guys. I'm sure I'm the one that got this off track because we didn't start with news or whatever. Like, better at this point just to like double up and leave news for tomorrow and anything we sort of got. Yeah, Andy's saying, yeah. I kind of feel like we get into it now, it's just going to sideline the whole conversation versus just being a show just about all the things that come up over the last 5, 6, 7 days or whatever. Just as a quick wrap up, the Moltbook, so I have to always double check and make sure I'm saying the right word, did eventually load. For anybody that just wants to see what it looks like, this is what it looks like on the home page. You can see there's now saying there's 1.5 million agents on there, 14,000 submolts, 113,000 posts, and over 500,000 comments. Again, remember, this is all non-human. This is all AI agents. So then what you can do is you can sort by top here. This Molt reg has got like by far the most things. In fact, it comes up over and over and over again. But then you'll find weird ones like, here's what I learned so far about history. This one is actually important, and this one came out 7 hours ago. Again, this is not written by a human, nor are any of the comments underneath it. So, if you're looking for that fun read, I guess you can kind of go on Moltbook and go down a whole lot of rabbit holes and just kind of see the kind of things that AI is producing out. But regardless, it's moltbook.com. I just thought I would share because it did finally come back up. And I know some other people like Greg were saying that it wasn't. And just, I don't know, Gwen is saying like, what's the point of it? Well, I don't know, Andy, it's kind of like maybe the precursor to Prometheus. I don't know. I mean, it's like getting a window into seeing how AI speaks to AI and reacts to it. And I think there's probably a lot to learn from it. Like, on its face, what would you get out of it? I think Greg was maybe asking that earlier. Like, okay, great. What do I use this for? I don't personally have an answer to that. I don't know if any of y'all do, or Carl or anything. Like, what do you use it for other than to like, so look through it to try to come up with your own ideas on maybe where this is going? I think
that's it. Like, it's more of like, hey, you got to ignore like a lot of it has changed my life. I don't do this. It's like,
right.
You got ignore the tech bro kind of like super hype, overhype of the overhype. But it's like, oh, cool. Like, it can do this stuff. To me, it's always the proactives. Like, oh, it can now proactively do stuff for me. Now, do I want it to be all proactive? No, but there are some things I'd love to have it proactive. And this is why the email keeps coming up, because you're full of spam and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people will be like, you know what? Before I get this MoltBot to answer all my emails, maybe the first thing I would just want it to do is kind of organize it, because I don't want to organize it.
Yeah, kind of like Zipper.
Yeah, but I don't want to tell it to organize it. I want it to think about organizing it like on its own. Like, I want like, that's where a personal assistant, like a true personal assistant, will go out of its way and be like, if you had a personal assistant, I don't think you must have a real life personal assistant who manages our time, our schedules, and looks stuff for us. I think that is the maybe shining star. We want something to do virtually for us. I think the trust is like, do we trust this thing to do what a human could do, a virtual assistant could do? I'm not sure it has that capability right now, even though people say it does. I'm like, I don't think so. And two, do we trust it to do that? Some people will trust it right away. A majority of people will be like, it's not doing it the way I want to do it. Doing the way, right? So it has all the memory and stuff like that. But I keep coming back to that article by Jaya Gupta, where he was saying like decision traces, and how things are actually decided is not through text. It's not through a Slack thread. It's not through that. it comes through all the emails, what's in your head, Slack messages, just a bunch of things all over the place of how decisions, and an agent can actually capture that and understand that and think through that and problem solve until it's done, not Ralph Wiggum style, but actually true, not just bash your head into it until it's complete, but taking the learnings continue. There's a good post by who's the guy who just left OpenAI? One of the researchers who started his own company, Jerry something. He wrote a post saying how like you can't get AGI until that intelligence component is there, that it can problem solve, not just loop solve. Like there's a good post on that. I thought it was a neat thing. So yeah, and he mentioned OpenClaw can't do that. Like some people will tell you it can, but it can't because it still requires you to prompt it into it.
Yeah, let me weave off of superintelligence there. There's more to be said about superintelligence, and we'll save that for tomorrow because there's a number of sort of people, high-level researchers that are leaving the main frontier model developers and going out to develop superintelligence. And that's kind of the next frontier for AI. But I wanted to talk about Moltbook and how it relates to superintelligence. So in answer to the question, what is this for? What's the purpose of it? Well, it was put out there without any express purpose. But you can see how it's a framework for collaboration among multiple agents, which may be the context in which superintelligence emerges, not from one single model or one single agent, but rather from the activities of multiple agents who are all prompted correctly, either self-prompted or otherwise prompted in a subreddit, if you will, in a submult that is all about developing the answers to the questions that superintelligence is needing to answer. And it could be that it is that collaboration across multiple agents that this is the best and earliest example of. And that's why Elon Musk said, this is the beginning wave of the singularity. The singularity meaning this is where all of the AIs work together in concert and surpass in dramatic ways anything that human collaboration could achieve.
So Andre Karpathy on the 30th this weekend. What's going on at Moltbook? I guess that was Friday. What's going on at Moltbook is genuinely the most incredible sci-fi takeoff agentic thing that I've seen recently. People's CloudBots, MoltBots, now OpenClaw, are self-organizing on Reddit, on a Reddit-like site for AIs discussing various topics and even how to speak privately. So this is also an incredible research assistant experiment that you couldn't have gotten permission to do, right? This is just like, hey, this is a cool thing. Somebody made a video, had a Mac Mini in it. People lost their minds. And right now we're just watching what happened. But you couldn't have set up this experiment without it interfering with the experiment. The other thing that I think is really valuable about this is that right now, this is still very much in the bubble, like bubble, right? These are people who are excited about the fact that it looks like Reddit. And that's a relatively small portion of the population just right there. And now it's Reddit about tech, and it's Reddit about tech that is AI and all the things. But if this were a more mainstream topic and site, we would be having conversations about how, about what ways the muggles, the people outside of the bubble are, that's the security risk, right? We're saying the security risk is because your API is going to get stolen and made to do other things and you're going to be on the hook for the money. But the security risk of unprepared people seeing this, hearing this about whatever the topic is, it won't be tech. It will be water, right? Or it will be the kinds of things that are ways to light fire in a general public that then creates opportunities for profit, manipulation, power, all those kinds of things. I think this is very interesting, and I don't think we'll see it from the companies, the companies that have shareholders or that you can bring suits against anytime soon, because it happened because it's open source.
Open source, decentralized.
We're gonna give you the tools to do crazy things to yourself, but we're just gonna leave them in an open environment because we could not possibly hand it out or sell it without being liable for what happens.
I want to know, Carl, what you asked the 10,000 agents to do together after being registered on Moltbook. Like that, you may not have prompted them in any specific way. You might just have released them into that environment, what they do. But imagine if you say, look, I want you guys to, your prime directive is I want you to create a submolt, and I want you to be available in that submolt to, talk to each other ad infinitum on the question of, okay, how do we answer any question that's posed to us by any human or any other agent?
I'll I'll check once I go back to my virtual, I want to see what they actually did with it, which will be interesting, which will be really interesting. So yeah, I'll report back tomorrow because I got to run, but it'll be interesting what those 10,000 did, because I didn't give them any specific outside of go into each molt and
how can you even summarize what 10,000 agents did?
And maybe I'll ask OpenClaw to actually summarize the activities. See what. Cool. All
right. Till then, everybody. Thank you very much. We're dropping like flies. Andy and I are going to leave the studio as well. Hope you can join us tomorrow. If you want to continue the conversation, go to dailyaishowcommunity.com. And thanks. Happy Monday, everybody.
See you tomorrow.